Nick C. I just heard that Mark Bunker had won a seat on Clearwater's City Council. For the benefit of relatively new Scientology watchers, Mark is a longtime Scientology critic whose engagement with Scientology goes back at least 20 years. How do you think this makes Scientology leadership feel, especially since both Aaron Smith-Levitt and Mike Rinder were involved in Mark's campaign? Thanks for the question, Nick. I am actually looking forward to getting Mark Bunker back onto my Sensibly Speaking podcast. If you did not see, I will throw a link below to the podcast I did with Mark when he was ramping up for his election. It was an interesting podcast, and we will be doing a follow-up. He's already agreed to do that. We just need to get it scheduled. I think that they are probably pretty mad that Mark Bunker is on Clearwater City Council. There is no world in which that's a good thing for the Church of Scientology. So there's no way they're going to be happy about that. And I think they really did try their hardest to keep him from getting that city council seat, amongst all the other things that they do. And it's kind of telling how little of an effect they had in bringing him down or taking away from his campaign or smearing him now I also don't have all the details of what occurred during the campaign, so that's what I'm going to rely on Mark to tell us about when I get him on the podcast. But I can say in general terms that there is no question that somewhere in a file cabinet, a folder on somebody's desk is a program, a series of steps and targets to get done that has Mark Bunker's name on it. And that program is an effort to ruin him utterly as per Scientology policy. It's not a joke. They actually follow that policy, and they really do want to do that. They didn't get him in the election, and he got on the city council, and now they're going to have a thorn in their side because of that. And they're going to have to deal with that. They were not able to prevent him. In fact, I understand he won by a pretty good number. So you're going to see, we'll probably talk about this in the podcast, but I'm thinking you're going to see, or you're going to hear about attempts to infiltrate his life or the city council in some fashion more than whatever Scientology's already done. We know from the history of what Scientology did in Clearwater already how their playbook operates. And infiltration is part of their playbook. I'm not just pulling this out of nowhere. They infiltrated newspapers, government offices in Clearwater when they first moved there in the 70s. And this was a very planned campaign to take over the levers of power and influence of that town so that they would have unimpeded progress to build more, create a Scientology city. If there has ever been a place in the entire world where Scientology had its eye on the prize of a Scientology city, it's Clearwater. They talked about Portland actually being the first Scientology city, and that was a motto that Hubbard gave to Portland quite some time ago, but really, for all practical purposes, it's Clearwater. So they don't want somebody on the city council messing with them. And Mark Bunker is somebody who really understands how Scientology works at a very deep core level. He really gets it. No other person who's been on the city council has actually really understood it, or if they did, they didn't know what to do about it, or they felt powerless against it, or for whatever reason there was very little pushback against Scientology. There's been a lot of efforts to get along, try to appease them, try to work with them. But it's with Scientology, and especially under David Miscavige's rule now, and it's pretty much been under his rule for most of this time that they've been dealing with Scientology in Clearwater. It's his way or the highway. He's not interested in compromise. He's offered projects to the city. He's offered renderings to the city. He's offered to throw money at the city to help with their downtown restoration projects. But it's always been contingent on, well, this is how we want things to be, and if you do it the way we want you to do it, then you get all these, bennies. But if you don't do it the way we want it, then everything's withdrawn, and you are now our mortal enemy. And that's, how Scientology is sort of played back and forth with Clearwater. It's not been any kind of, as I understand it, it's not been any kind of a cooperative effort or, hey, let's, have some give and take or anything. It hasn't been like that. And of course, we also know, let's not forget, Scientology is not just another group. Scientology is a destructive cult. So, they're not interested in getting along with the society at large. In fact, I'll make this point now, since it fits in with this, and I made this during the podcast that we did this week, that this whole global crisis is really highlighting something that you don't normally see with the Church of Scientology. Their PR and their efforts at public imagery all are about cooperative efforts, interfaith councils, they kind of trying to get along to this kind of thing. But that's not really how they are, and that's not how they talk when behind closed doors, and that's not what their real attitude is. The Sea Org's attitude, Scientologists in general's attitude towards the rest of the world, people who are not Scientologists, can be summed up in one word, and that word is contempt. They hold the rest of the world in contempt. And I wish I'd thought to bring this up before in all the talk that I've done about this, but it really is highlighted now where it's never been so obvious to see, the way they're flaunting the social distancing rules, the way they're still encouraging people to come in for social gatherings and stuff. So anyway, I don't want to get on a big tangent about that, just wanted to comment on it because that is how Clearwater has been dealt with all these years, is from a contemptuous attitude. They have to put up with city regulations. They have to put up with these restrictions and stuff, and they're not interested in that. They're very interested in having things their way. Period. And they spend a lot of money to make that happen, and they've bought a lot of influence in that town. So the city council all by itself is not going to be able to deal with the Scientology threat all on its own. Mark Bunker is not all by himself going to be able to now single-handedly, take down Scientology in Clearwater. It's not going to work that way at all. He's just somebody who's finally a point of actual resistance to what their schemes and plans are versus somebody who's sort of passive-aggressively watching it happen and feeling powerless of what to do, which is, I think, how most of their city council folks have been over all these years. Anyway, that's kind of the most intelligent things I can say about that, so I think I'll just leave it at that.